the basic way of describing this is it prevents flows from hopping to one overlay to another. It keeps the flow on a single overlay across the entire journey. That's the basic idea, the basic premise. This feature is on by default. It's switched on for upgrades, and it's on for new installs. This helps in a variety of situations where the policy match criteria is different on both ends. And I'll show you an example or two where that might happen. Like you do a lookup on the spoke and you get one answer for an overlay, and you do a hairpin 2 lookup on the hub and you get a different answer for the overlay. I'll show you why that might happen. And of course, item number 4 here, the easiest way to think about it is the first packet that comes into the EdgeConnect, like the spoke, that packet we're going to do a lookup, we're going to find an overlay, and from that point on, that's the overlay that gets used everywhere, from end to end. So it's as the packet on-ramps onto the fabric, at that point the decision is made what policy determines the overlay, and that overlay sticks. So this, innocuous little checkbox down here at the bottom right of the system template screen is what we're talking about, maintain end-to-end overlay mapping. So that is checked by default. You, of course, can uncheck it. I don't think you should. There are very, very few situations where you're going to turn this off. So here's a quick, sort of just super quick, easy explanation of what's happening. You've got packets that are, you're doing a voice call for perhaps from Kennesaw 3 to East 1. When that first voice packet comes into Kennesaw 3 on the LAN side, it goes across the fabric to East 1, the top up there, over the real-time overlay. No matter what happens at East 1, no matter what happens at the hub, the return path is always going to be over the same overlay over which the packets came in. It cannot return back to Kennesaw 3 over some other overlay. It is forced to return over real-time. And you'll see this in the flow table. It'll appear as what you see in the top left up there as a built-in policy enforce overlay. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about hairpinning because that's really where this comes into play, especially as it relates to hairpin 2. There are several different kinds of hairpins in the Silver Peak system, and the enforce overlay feature applies to all of them. So what this means, of course, is that you get this overlay persistence across many hops, even in multi-region deployments where you go from spoke to hub to spoke and back again. That entire pathway will keep the same overlay. And of course, this means hub and spoke situations like you see here. You'll get the same overlay across the whole thing. Doesn't matter what the policy lookups do, the same overlay will persist. Now, what this doesn't do is it doesn't maintain peer. And this is related to that thing I was talking about a second ago, in that if you have two different hubs that have the same metric, they're both, in this case, we're announcing 20000/50s or /zeros with metric 50. We're only maintaining the overlay, not the peer. That means that in this example here, the overlay is going to be real time the entire way. But it is totally possible that just because a flow came in from East 1, it's not going to be forced to go back to East 1. It can still go back to East 2. That's what I mean by this feature doesn't maintain peer, doesn't maintain symmetry across multiple ECs with the same metric. All right, and also, and this is probably one of the most important points, it doesn't maintain application. So, like, I think this is relevant to one of the other examples in the beginning. In this example here on the bottom left, we have done a domain match on Skype for Business. And then so we pick an overlay that sends us up to East 1, the top right. And when it gets to East 1 works out the application name, and it's UDP 50024. So that can happen. Now, it doesn't change anything from the overlay standpoint. Even though we got UDP 50024 or whatever, and not Skype for Business, we're still going to stay on the real-time overlay. That's part of the beauty of this. But your overlay, your application name could report wrong. So that's related to whether or not you backhaul DNS to the hub or not. The downside of not backhauling it to the hub at this point is that you might misfire on the application name. Your routing and your policy treatment is going to be the same because you're going to be on the real-time overlay with the QoS and all that. But your application name might misreport.